Highlights from quarter-final 1 as we would get underway at the Nürburgring, and it was Dane Warren starting from pole position alongside Luke Bennett. That race down towards the first corner would see the Porsche Commander Esports man hanging on, but everyone fighting behind, including Marcel Cinčić, who had to start from the rear of the field. Nikodem Wisniewski having a bit of a half-tap through T1 and slowing down into the mid-pack. Meanwhile, James Bolton was fending off Patrick Holtzman. Jamie Fluke was getting really involved in it. Fluke, though, would drop back just a touch, and Isaac Price would be the next one to get down the inside of him. And once Isaac Price had got through, Jamie Fluke dropped back not only from Price but from Yarshall as well. Jeff Giassi had to deal with the charge of Marcel Cinčić after the end of the first lap. Cinčić to the outside, a bit of a hip check between themselves, and then Cinčić was straight back down through, dealing it out as much as he was receiving it, and then Nikodem Wisniewski was back into the mix as they leave the Mercedes arena section. It was side by side between the pair, and the number 33 was trying to make his way straight back through up into 7th position, which Wisniewski would take. Patrick Holtzman was then on the attack of Ryan Barneveld, looking down the inside into that first corner, giving a little bit of a rear end nudge as the mouse car would just get into the rear end of the BMW M Team BS competition. Barneveld was able to hang on at least for the brief while. Holtzman was sending it to the outside of the Mercedes arena section going into that final bit. Meanwhile, Marcel Cinčić was getting past Nikodem Wisniewski. Holtzman was unable to get through. Marcel Cinčić was then on the rear end of Patrick Holtzman, and when Holtzman made a mistake, of course, Cinčić pounced going through Dunlop up towards the Michael Schumacher S, and Marcel Cinčić was finally inside the top 6 with only a couple of laps left to go. He'd have to give his position back though to Patrick Holtzman, who'd come round the outside. Nikodem Wisniewski also involved in the mix, and this cluster for the final transfer spot was about to be set ablaze. Wisniewski onto the rear end of the R8 G-Man. That race down towards the first corner is being covered off by Patrick Holtzman, but Marcel Cinčić was trying to open the door. Wisniewski was coming through 3 wide through the middle. The R8 G-Man gets pinched, and then 2 cars go off to the right-hand side. Cinčić would receive a post-race penalty for his inclusion in that incident, but a lot for race control to look at after the first quarter-final. Wisniewski was then into the fight with Isaac Price, which he would send himself down the inside for maybe a little bit too ambitiously, and Isaac Price would lose out. Wisniewski going for as many points as he could towards the final moments of the race. Holtzman also trying to drag his way through. However, at the front of the field, it was Dane Warren looking for a victory finally in ESL R1. The Porsche Commander Esports man would come through that final corner and would lead 1.7 seconds from Luke Bennett and Thomas Tattler, and what had been an enthralling quarter-final 1. Dane Warren, Bennett, Tattler, Baldwin, Barneveld and Cinčić, the top 6 of the race ended, but expect that to change. And now looking for those final 6 spots in semi-final 1, it's quarter-final 2 with Josh Rogers starting this one from pole position alongside series debutant Sebastian Job. The race down to the first corner would almost see the G2 Esports man taking the race lead. He'd be sending it down the inside, and the 22 would just muscle his way past Josh Rogers, and it was G2 Esports at the front of the field. Meanwhile, there was clusters behind. Ibrahim Khan had issues out through the first corner. Johan Hart and Erhan Jajowski were battling it out. Meanwhile, Dara McCormack and Enzo Benito were battling out, but not where you'd expect them to be fighting, outside of the top 6. Getting himself involved in this fight as well was Victor Veloso, as Ibrahim Khan has returned to the championship, and Oscar Bixrud as well for the heroic team. Up towards the Michael Schumacher S, and there was side by side McCormack and Benito through the NGK chicane. The door was open though for Victor Veloso to come through 3 wide up towards that final corner. McCormack in a little bit too deep, opening up the opportunity for Ibrahim Khan to sneak his way past Enzo Benito on that race down to the first corner as McCormack was making a move on Veloso. Khan was trying his one on Benito. McCormack's would be successful, Khan's would not. Up towards the second corner on the circuit through the Mercedes arena section, the BMW M Team BS competition car was not able to make his way through. Final lap of the race, Sebastian Job left the door open to Joshua Rogers. These two have fought time and time again in other championships, and they fight here today. Josh Rogers playing it perfectly up towards the final corner. Erhan Jajowski would almost try and get himself involved in the mix, but after a fantastic, enthralling fight, Josh Rogers would come out on top in quarter-final 2 ahead of Sebastian Job, ahead of Erhan Jajowski, Johan Hartmannerhaus and Maximilian Benecke. The provisional results from quarter-final 2, and the 6 will move on to the semi-finals. And on then to highlights from quarter-final 3. Tommy Uskard starting this one from pole position alongside Jeffrey Rietveld, as once again the race down to that first corner would be underway. Ulas Zilderim starting a little bit further off the rear end of the field as he would let everyone battle their way down to the first corner, potentially expecting drama. There was almost some, as there was a bit of a slide from Joni Turmula coming through as he tapped the rear end of Jakub Brzezinski. Speaking of tapping the rear end of Jakub Brzezinski, there's Kaki Oliveira just giving a couple of nudges through that first corner at the start of the second lap. Then there was an enormous send in the background from Niels Nijholt down the inside of Mitchell de Jong. He would rejoin the race circuit into the side of Kevin Ellis Jr., who would spin off and go to the rear of the field. Nothing really Ellis Jr. could do there, as the Apex Racing Team driver would drop to the back. Niels Nijholt would eventually join him back there as Joni Turmula was trying to get his way past Oliveira. This is the battle, though, for 7th position. Not inside that top 6, not inside those positions that will transfer through into the semi-finals. But Joni Turmula was trying to do something about it, was trying to move his way through. Penultimate lap of the race, though, and it was Jiri Toman that was trying to make his way past Jeffrey Rietveld up through turn 1, and Toman bouncing back after what had been a difficult previous round, getting knocked out in the quarterfinals. This time that is not looking like it is the case. The R8G man around the outside of Jeffrey Rietveld was not able to make his way through on this occasion, but was definitely fighting to move his way up into the runner-up position in the race. Mitchell de Jong, though, looking just for some all-important points as they're all trying to race their way through into the Rennsport Summit at the Spring Major. Mitchell de Jong trying to get that extra point off of Oliveira, sending it through, fighting really hard on the final lap of the race, through turn 1, through turn 2, through 3 and 4 they would go, and Mitch de Jong with the inside line, would give him the outside line through this turn 4, through that kick and out onto the that stretch just leaving the Mercedes Arena section. It was de Jong that was coming out on top in that occasion. Tommy Uskard, though, well, he looked strong a week ago, and he looked strong here as well. Tommy Uskard out of the final corner, taking another win in ESL R1 as the heroic team looked to move from strength to strength. Rietveld and Toman separated by just over a tenth across the line. Yuri Kaustorp, Marko Pejic and Jakub Brzezinski, these 6 drivers, provisionally onto semi-final 2. And then on to quarter-final 4 as we look for the final 6 drivers to move through into the semi-finals. Moritz Lerner would be starting this one from pole position. However, his start would be poor. Eamon Murphy would come through to take the race lead down to the first corner for G2 Esports. Mac Backham was almost having a look down to the first corner, but was more in defence of those behind. Mikael Gala, he was fighting as they entered the first corner. Up through the chicane on the first lap, and it was getting very messy indeed between this group. Rainer Talvar and Peter Berryman all over the place going through NGK, and then Ian Porter battling it out with Graham Carroll for 11th and 12th position. Carroll would come through going through the final corner, and the 2 would battle it out. Moritz Lerner was looking to come straight back through for the race leaders. Eamon Murphy was just about able to hang on. Garlow would see his opportunity to try and come through into second. It wasn't quite here, it wasn't quite this time. Would he get many more through the race though? Garl having to settle for 3rd. Moritz Lerner was still feisty. He was fighting. He was desperate for a race win to represent Mouse here. Eamon Murphy was just able to hang on, and really with the preferred line through 2 and 3, Eamon Murphy should hold on in that number 66. Moritz Lerner not quite able to fight, but he was still working over the rear end of that BMW, of that G2 Esports car, looking for any opportunity. He'd almost have one, but it was more looking backwards, because Garl would make his way through up into 2nd position. Mikael Garl up into that 2nd spot. Moritz Lerner down to 3rd, and Mac Backham was the next one to try and fight his way through. Jack Keithley, another one of our debutants for the Williams Esports team, was having a bit of a slide going through NGK. Unfortunately, it looks like 7th was only as good as it would be for him. Eamon Murphy, though, after Sebastian Job's fantastic quarter-final 2, G2 Esports were back up onto the podium, but this time it was on top. Eamon Murphy in 1st, Mikael Gala, Moritz Lerner, Mac Backham, Kevin Siggy and Lasse Sorensen, the top 6 provisionally in quarter-final 4.